Hello, my name is Myra. Welcome to another video. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in March. In March, I read a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I read a total of 7 books. I am in the middle of 2 books, but I might finish them this weekend, but today's my only day that I'm able to film. So I will be talking about those in my April wrap up. But with that said, I only read 7 books, which is kind of a little bit for me, although, I mean, it is what it is, it's fine. But the main reason why I didn't get as much reading done this month is because I was in Hawaii with my boyfriend, visiting some of his family for like 9 days. So that definitely took some of my reading time off. Anyway, with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and just start in order from what I read. So the very first book that I read at the very beginning of March was Raiders of the Lost Heart by Joe Segura. So in this book, you have 2 doctors who are archaeologists, and you have Corey and Ford Matthews. So Ford Matthews, he is Corey's like arch nemesis. They've been rivals in school. There was a point in school where, in college specifically, where she thought that maybe things were gonna go somewhere else, and then he started dating this other girl and completely broke her heart. So flash forward now, it's been years since then, and they're rivals because they're both in the same industry. One day, Corey ends up being approached by this man who says, hey, we have an all expenses paid trip for you to come to the Mexican jungle to find this like Aztec ruin. And it happens to be a project that she's very passionate about and that she actually talked about in her dissertation. And so she ends up going just to check it out, but she does think like, okay, this is a little too good to be true. And when she arrives to the Mexican jungle, she ends up finding out that the one leading this expedition is Dr. Ford Matthews. As soon as she finds out that the person leading it is the man that broke her heart and her rival, she says, you know what, I don't think I can do this. Like, I'm not gonna be working with him. Like, who knows how long we're gonna be here. They've already been here for months. And he says, you know what, I really need your help. Can you please stay here? And she kind of figures, okay, I could either stay and be a part of this discovery that I'm really passionate about, or I can leave and possibly miss out on a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And so she ends up deciding to stay. Now, I will say, obviously, you have close proximity because they are literally in the jungle and they're in the middle of nowhere. There is a lot of like instant attraction between the two because even though they're rivals, like she can appreciate his good looks, he definitely appreciates her good looks, and it kind of goes from there. There's some pretty good like banter and like funny moments in the story, so I really enjoyed that. I did rate this book a 3.5 simply because a lot of the romance seemed to just kind of be like physical attraction, although there is like, you do find out more about like Ford and more about Corey and kind of like their background. The one thing though that I kind of did have a little bit of an issue with was the fact that he kind of screws Corey over a lot throughout their career, which is why they're rivals. And I feel like he didn't really redeem himself enough. Like, I feel like he could have definitely done more, and he could have groveled maybe a bit. Like, she kind of was a little bit too nice. Like, and you understand, like, you find out why Ford is doing certain things, but to me, I'm still like, I don't know, there needed to be a little bit more. Also at the end of the book, there's a little bit more action, and that's kind of where it got to be a little bit more like, I felt like I was watching a little bit of like a novela, because I was like, whoa, this kind of came out of nowhere. But it was still like a pretty good read. It was pretty fun. There is some like Spanish words thrown in there, but some of the times I'm like, I don't really talk like this. I mean, I'm Mexican, I speak Espanol, like I speak Spanish and English, and just some of the parts I was like, I don't know, this is not really like how I would talk or how I know other people to talk. So it kind of felt like it was just kind of thrown in there to like make you see like maybe the Mexican side of the heroine. I don't know, but overall I still really enjoyed the book and I would still recommend it. Now after that, I did read Barbarian's Prize, which is by Ruby Dixon. If you know anything about her Planet of the Barbarians series, it's all like alien romance, so a lot of them are pretty smutty. However, in this book, you actually have a heroine that when she was abducted from Earth, the evil aliens that abducted them before they crash landed onto this other alien planet sexually assaulted her. Now, she wasn't the only one that was sexually assaulted, unfortunately, by these aliens. However, she is one of the ones that's struggling with it the most, totally understandably so. And so while she's in this planet, of course, as you find out in the series, if you read it, there's this like small tribe that's pretty much slowly dying out. And so they get really excited when there's a lot of women, because that means that they can, you know, resonate, meaning fated mates, and potentially like produce offspring, and that way their tribe can continue to grow and be strong. And so she is like terrified though, obviously, because of what she experienced with these other evil aliens. And so she doesn't want anything to do with men. She doesn't want their attention. It actually makes her really nervous. So it does talk about that throughout the book. Eventually she does resonate to a guy that has pretty much established a friendship with her. Now, he is attracted to her, but he understands that pushing her and trying to be or like force something other than friendship is not the way to go with her. And eventually they do, of course, resonate, meaning that they are each other's mates. But what was really nice about this one is that she obviously, because of what she experienced, she has a lot of trauma, a lot of healing that she needs to do, and she wants to reclaim some of like her power, because she feels like these other aliens really took that from her. And he is there to help her and be patient with her and just be there for her in any way that she needs him to be. So it actually ended up being a really sweet story, and I feel like it was done pretty well, especially considering that her books are like around 300 pages. So it is really quick reads, but I really enjoyed this one. I rated it, you know, 4-star, just because although these are, again, very smutty and very like quick reads, I feel like this was done really nicely. So I really enjoyed it. After that, I read a book that I had been wanting to read for a while, and I finally got to, and it's The Nanny by Lana Ferguson. So this one, you have a woman who, she used to do OnlyFans, and she was making, you know, really good money from it. She was able to live off of it. However, at one point she really gets to fall for one of her clients, and they schedule a meetup and he never shows up. And so she is like pretty heartbroken about it. She actually feels kind of dumb for like falling for this random stranger that she's never seen, because in her OnlyFans she wears a mask, so no one knows what she looks like, and obviously she doesn't know what her subscribers look like. Now fast forward, she is working, or she's studying this program to work with kids on like the therapy side of things, and she actually really needs a job because she's pretty low on money and she's struggling. And she ends up finding an ad of someone looking for a nanny, and she is like, oh my god, I would get to live in. The pay is astronomical, like it's really, really good money. And so she ends up sending her resume and gets an interview. Now when she meets her potential boss during this interview, she's instantly attracted to him, and she's like, okay, no, like I cannot, because if he ends up hiring me, I would have to live there and be around, you know, him, his daughter, like that's a no-go. And so she ends up getting hired because he finds that she's overly qualified. He hires her, she moves in, and they start living together. Now she, again, is attracted to him. He's also attracted to her, but they know it's like a no-go zone. And so as they're spending time together and they're there, and she really gets to see a lot of the stuff that he's going through, she starts to really get close to his daughter. And so they kind of find a routine that gets going. Now at one point she does find out that he happens to be the guy that used to be a subscriber on her OnlyFans, and the guy that she was supposed to meet and never showed, but she doesn't know how to tell him, because now she's kind of like, oh my gosh, like how do I tell him that this is me, especially because at this point she's really developed feelings for him and he pretty much has developed feelings for her. And so she just lets things go on for some time, and the story goes on from there. Now I will say, obviously at some point he's gonna find out, right? Now the way that kind of happened, I kind of felt like it was not fully believable, because I feel like if someone lies to you about something and then all of a sudden tells you, I don't know, I feel like, yeah, maybe some people might be upset, some people might not be, but it's like, I don't know, I feel like there had to be like a little bit there, I don't know. And it just kind of seemed a little bit too okay for me. I was like, really? Like, okay, I guess. And also, to be honest, that was kind of what it was leading up to. And then once that happened, I was like, okay, so what now? Like, I don't know, I kind of felt like there was not really anything else. And that kind of happened around like the 70% mark. So the last 30% of the book, I kind of just like skimmed it. Like I still read it, but I kind of was just like, okay, let me see how it's gonna end. So for those reasons, I pretty much gave this one like a 2.5 to a 3 star. Yeah, that's really like all it was. That was the main conflict really of the story. So after that, I was kind of like, okay, like, and even that, again, it wasn't really what I thought it was gonna be. So that's why I rated it what I did. Now, next, I ended up reading The Bodyguard by Catherine Senner. So this one, you have a bodyguard and a famous actor. But what I really liked about this story is that the bodyguard is a woman and the famous actor is a man. So I feel like a lot of bodyguard romances, it's always like this big tough man who is like the bodyguard, and then the woman is always the one that needs the bodyguard, whether she's like an influencer, an actress, a princess, whatever. And I loved that in this case it was opposite. Not only that, but also the heroine is shorter than the male, and so when he meets her and finds out that she's gonna be like the main, like his main security detail, he's like, yeah, right, I don't think that you can protect me, like I'm literally bigger than you. And she's like, okay, here, let me prove it. And she ends up like flipping him on his back and like pinning him down, and he's like, okay, never mind, I stand corrected, you are totally more than capable to take care of me. Now the reason why he needs a bodyguard is because he does have a little bit of like a stalker, and because he's this famous actor, he has a lot of really like too overly committed of fans. And so he has received some like threats that are a little bit alarming, which means, you know what, okay, I'll go ahead and get a bodyguard. His publicist is the one that sets that up for him. And so when he finds out that she's going to be his bodyguard, though, he's supposed to be going to like his family's ranch, and he's like, listen, I am not going to go tell my family that I have a bodyguard because my family is going to get worried. I don't want to worry my parents and have them wonder like why I need a bodyguard, like what's going on in my life. So if you're going to come with me, you have to pretend to be my girlfriend. And so she pretends to be his girlfriend, and of course they have to be like in the same room, but she's sleeping on the floor. She's like, nope, I'm not gonna sleep on the same bed, like you can sleep on the bed, I'm gonna sleep on the floor. But obviously because they have to like be dating, they're spending a lot of time together, they're getting to know each other, and the romance pretty much goes on from there. Now this one I ended up rating a 4 star. Actually, no, I rated this a 3 star simply because it was very slow burn, which I guess I understood, but I kind of felt like not enough things were happening between the two to really cement like the love. But at the same time, it was also very like rom-com-y, and like it just felt like a little bit too sweet of a romance. And it's not really the type of romance that I like reading. I don't know what that says about me, but I just don't like a book that's like too sweet and like it's so like flowery and everything's so great. Like I don't know, I kind of want some issues, like something to make it a little bit more realistic, at least for me. So that's the only reason why I rated that one the 3 stars. But I still, like I said, it was really refreshing to have a woman be the bodyguard and the man be the one who needs the bodyguard and the protection. So if you want to check that out, definitely give it a read. I otherwise really enjoyed the book. Next, I read Spark of Fate by Tessa Halley. Actually, I've been saying Tessa Halley, and I think it might be Tessa Hale. So I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. It's H-A-L-E. I might be saying it wrong. But in Spark of Fate, I actually read this one because I read Twilight of Embers, which is another book by her that's dragon shifters, but Spark of Fate is wolf shifters. So you have the start of the book with the heroine being picked up from a concert with her sister, and on the way home, her sister's telling her, listen, like, no offense, but like your boyfriend is garbage. He should have came with you to this concert, even if he's not a fan. Like, that's just what your partner should do for you. And so they're just talking, enjoying the car ride. And there's an unfortunate car accident where they almost both lose their lives. But, well, the main heroine doesn't lose her life, but her sister does. And so she has survivor's guilt. And her parents are not really handling grief in the best way. They end up moving and relocating to another state where basically her dad just engrosses himself in his work. He's spending a bunch of hours like at work, and because of the company that he works at, he also has like a apartment that he can go to that's closer to his place of work, and so he spends a lot of time there, which means at home it's only her and her mom. Now her mom has been incredibly depressed, hasn't been eating. You know, she's grieving the death of her daughter, and so she, even though she's only a senior in high school, she's been having to take care of her mom and make sure that she's eating or trying to get her to eat. Now the sad thing is that she was adopted, and her sister who died was their biological daughter, and so she kind of feels like, I think my parents don't want me anymore. Like, after all, I'm not like blood related to them, I'm just adopted. And the mom, because she's handling grief in such a like in a way that's making her resent the heroine for surviving, she's pretty much throwing that at her face, like, you're not my daughter, you were adopted, like I didn't even want you. And it's really messed up, and she's putting up with it because she understands, you know what, my mom is grieving, like I need to help her, but it's still really sad. Now because she's going to this new school, she ends up meeting this guy who is very like friendly and like protective of her, and is like, you know what, like I'm gonna take care of you, like I'll be your friend, etc. And there are some like pretty mean like bullies at the school, and so him and like some of his other friends that go to this school pretty much take it or make it their mission to take care of her. Now she does end up finding out that they are wolf shifters, and she not only finds out that they're wolf shifters, but she also finds out that she herself is a wolf shifter, which raises a ton of questions, because she's like, okay, if I was put into adoption, why did my parents put me into adoptions? Like, are both my parents wolf shifters? Obviously one of them has to be at least. So she's kind of like, where did I come from? Who are my parents? What's going on? Not only that, but also these wolf shifters have powers, but their powers can only be in human form. So they don't have these powers when they're wolves, but they do when they're human. And she ends up finding out that she has a variety of powers, which makes her like a very desirable partner to have. And so now they're at risk of other potential like clans wanting to take her and have her with them. So it is pretty action packed, and there are 2 other books that follow this book. I'm in the middle of the 2nd book, which I'll be finishing sometime in April, and then I'll be reading the 3rd book after that. But so good. Tessa Halley, I don't know, it's just like a lot of action. The steam and like spicy scenes are pretty good, and I felt like the steam, especially in the 1st book, was good enough. Like, it's definitely not the spiciest that I've ever read, but it was still like pretty spicy, so it was like still pretty like mild and good. I don't know, and the action was nice too, so definitely recommend it. After that, I read Barbarian's Mate also by Ruby Dixon. So again, this is just following her Planet of the Barbarian series. I pretty much was reading these books because they were on Kindle, and I was able to just kind of fly through them, especially on the way back from my trip. So these are like the 2 books, Spark of Fate and Barbarian's Mate. Those are the 2 books that I was reading on like my flight back and just while we were at the airport and stuff like that. But anyway, Barbarian's Mate is enemies to lovers. So you have the heroine who, she wants nothing more than to like resonate to someone, meaning like be their soulmate and, you know, have this partner and have a baby, because she loves it. She loves the idea of it. Now, the only reason why she hasn't is because technically when a woman resonates to one of these aliens, it's because they're the best pair to have offspring, right? So that means like biologically they make the most sense. And she hasn't, because she had an IUD back when she was on Earth. And so she's like, oh my gosh, I need to figure out a way to get rid of my IUD, because that's why I'm not resonating, because my body knows that like I can't, whatever. Now at the start of this book, she actually ends up finding out that her IUD like slipped out, meaning like the Kui, aka like the parasite that all of these women now have to be able to survive on this planet, finally like flushed it out of her system for her to be able to resonate. So she's super excited, and she's looking around at the like available men to see, okay, who am I going to resonate to? Like, who's my partner? I'm so excited. And she ends up resonating to Hayden, which happens to be like her enemy. Like, he and her are always fighting. They're always bumping heads. They cannot stand each other. Now, part of it though is like a little bit of attraction on her part, because she does realize that whenever he's not around to fight with her, she misses him. and like wants him around. And the reason why he's always been very like annoyed with her is because even before they resonate, he finds like himself pulled to her and he doesn't know why. And so she does not want to be his mate, and she is like, this cannot be happening, like you and I cannot be mates. And now Hayden does have a bad history with a former mate of his. When he was younger, he had resonated to a woman who was older than him, who was also a fellow alien, like part of his tribe. And this alien already had like a lover. So she was like, listen, you're a kid. Like, I am not going to be your mate. I do not want to be with you. And after this like sickness happens in the tribe, she ends up passing away, and he almost passes away, but they're able to take his Kui out and give him a new one, which is the one that basically now resonated with our heroine in this story. And that is why he's getting another mate. And so with her not wanting to be with him, now he's like facing rejection for like the second time. And he's kind of like, why does no one want to be with me? Like, what's so wrong with me that like these women are like, no thanks, like get away from me. And so it kind of like brought an interesting perspective in this one, because now you have these two people who like that's like all she's ever wanted, and now that she's having it, it's not really in the way that she thought she would. And then him having to deal with like facing rejection and being like, why does no one want me, and like having to work through those insecurities. So I give this one a 4-star. Again, super quick reads, around 300 pages. Recommend. Last but not least, I read Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I really enjoyed this book, and I was actually kind of upset with myself because I'm like, what took me so long to read this book? Now, in this book, you have the ordinary and the elites. Now, the ordinary are pretty much humans that do not have powers. They don't have any sort of like super strength or anything like that, right? And then the elites are the ones that have power. Now, there are some that have more powers than others. So there's some that have like super strength. There's some that are able to like clone themselves. There's some that have like fire and water abilities. There's some that have like electricity abilities. So there's a bunch of different kinds. Now, it is illegal and bad to be an ordinary, because the king of this civilization basically ordered all the ordinaries to be put down under the excuse of saying, hey, if we are surrounded by ordinaries, they're actually going to deplete our power, and then we will have no more power. And so people being worried about that have basically either reported or unalived any and all ordinaries. Now, she, the heroine in the story, is an ordinary, but she has been basically trained since she was this really small girl by her dad to pretend to have psychic abilities. And so she's been able to survive that way. Now, her dad was murdered, and so she is on the streets by herself, well, actually with her friend, and they both basically do whatever they can to try to survive and try to make enough money to like last another day. And so they've been living on the streets, and she is very good at stealing. She's very good at going unnoticed. And one day though, she ends up seeing this guy who obviously exudes like money and wealth, and she's like, I'm gonna steal from him. So she goes and bumps into him, and she ends up seeing just how attractive this guy is. But she's like, I can't get distracted. I'm supposed to try to steal some money from him. And she does. Now, she is on her way back to meet up with her friend when she ends up seeing that he is basically getting beat up by these other people, and they are pretty much like really like hurting him. And she just finds this like pull to like help defend him, because she's like, I don't know, there's like something about her that she's like, I don't like the injustices of someone being able to like just be hurt like this. And so she goes and she accidentally ends up saving his life. And what ends up happening is that she ends up getting nominated to be part of these trials that are going to determine like, you pretty much get like status. I think you also get like money and stuff. And she doesn't want to do it because she's like, oh my gosh, if I'm in these trials with all these people that have powers, they're gonna find out that I am ordinary and I don't have any. But she ends up having to go to the palace, and they have to be there to like take like place in like these balls and these like interviews and stuff like that to try to get people to vote for you. Now, I didn't know that this book had like Hunger Game vibes, but it had a lot of Hunger Game vibes, especially when the trial started, and even a little bit before that. It felt very much like the Hunger Games. I like the Hunger Games. I enjoyed the books. I loved the movies, but I did find that at times it was so like Hunger Games-esque that I couldn't like help it but picture like Jennifer Lawrence in some of the parts. Like I was kind of picturing like Jennifer Lawrence, and I was just like, wait, no, like this is not even what the character looks like. Like this is a different book. So I kind of had to like tell my brain like, nope, separate the two. But I do think that was like a little bit of like a thing that would kind of take me out of the story. Now with that said, you have Kai and Kit. Kai, it just sounds like such a sexy hero, and he is like attracted to Peyton, the heroine, and they're training together, and he's the one that she saved, but she also ends up meeting Kit. Now Kit is Kai's brother, and he is like the first in line for the throne, so he's the future king, and he's also really taken by Peyton. So you kind of have a little bit of like love triangle vibes, but they don't really go too much into it because she understands like these are my enemies, like they're gonna kill me the first chance that they get if they find out that I'm an ordinary. And so the trials began. There's a lot of action that goes on, and then the book does end on like a huge cliffhanger, which I'm like, oh my gosh, like the second book can't come fast enough. I can't remember, when does the second book come out? It comes out in a few months. Yeah, it comes out, does it come out in July? No, I think I'm thinking about a different book. I can't remember. Okay, I can't remember when it comes out, but I'm just like, I'm so excited for the second book because the way that it ended, I'm just like, what the heck is gonna happen? Like, who's gonna do what? Like, is she gonna end up with anyone? Now I will say, this is obviously a YA book. It's very, very slow burn. There's a lot of tension though. So there's so much tension that at some parts I was like, come on, like give me something. But there really is like no spice. So there's no spice in this book, but there's a lot of like tension with these characters, and yeah, just like a lot that happens between them. And yeah, I don't know. So overall, I rated this book a 4.5 star. Again, the main thing that I had with this book is that it just kept reminding me of the Hunger Games a little bit too much for my liking, that it was just like yanking me out of the story. But I have a feeling, just based on how the second book ended, or how the first book ended, that maybe the second book won't remind me as much. So depending on how the second book goes, that one might be a 5-star for me. So we shall see. We'll both find out together. But anyway, these are all the books that I read in March. If you've read any of these, please let me know what your thoughts were below. If you're gonna check any of these out, please let me know which ones. But otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in to this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.